Hey everybody, this is Kitsube, aka WubZerø, and today we are playing our first section of Bloodborne on the PS4. I'd like to thank you all for joining me here for hopefully what is a informative walkthrough, and we will be discussing as much lore as we can find, and I'll be showing you guys everything that I've learned from different sources and different places, watching videos and whatnot myself, and by playing the game. And we will see how everything goes. We're going to create a brand new character here, so let's go in.
Oh, yes. Pale blood. Well, you've come to the right place. Yharnam is the home of blood ministration. You need only unravel its mystery. But where's an outsider like yourself to begin? Easy, with a bit of Yharnam blood of your own. But first, you'll need a contract.
Alright, so we're going to talk a little bit about this. Yeah, I cut off so that I wouldn't be talking during the cinematic. Alright, we're going to talk a little bit about the character creation here. Your gender doesn't matter. Your appearance can be however you want it to, obviously. Your age has no bearing on your actual character's ability, but it affects your appearance, which is cool. Now, origin is very important. This is what determines your starting stats, your level, and the blood echoes that you start the game with. So, I have a terrible time pronouncing this top one here. Milk toast. Ordinary happy upbringing. All attributes average. So this is kind of your baseline average one if you're not sure what you want to play, or if you're new to Souls games or Bloodborne. This might be a good place to start. Lone survivor. Lone survivor of a lost hamlet. High life essence and vigor. You start with a pretty high vitality for this one. The rest of your stats are kind of baseline, but your blood tinge and arcane here start a little low. So this is a very durable build, but you'll definitely want to work on your damage stats a little bit. Troubled childhood, suffered misfortune in youth, highly resilient as a result. Your vitality is a little lower this time, at a 9. Your endurance starts pretty high, and endurance governs stamina and how much of that you have for the most part. Your strength starts lower here, but you do start with a decent skill, and skill is kind of like dexterity if you've played a Souls game before. It's used to govern skill weapons that require skill to wield instead of strength, or scale well with skill instead of strength. You do start with a really low blood tinge on this one, and blood tinge it governs more your actual your guns and the scaling with most sidearm weapons. And arcane is about run-of-the-mill here, and arcane governs arcane damage, fire damage in a lot of cases, lightning damage in a lot of cases, and it does involve what selection of spells you can get later in the game. Alright, so violent past, terribly violent past, rash but stronger for it. You got a bit more vitality, about middle. I consider, for starting stats, about middle of the line to be about 10. That might be completely wrong. I know that doesn't have anything to do with leveling, or what you should have later. I'm just looking at the stats as they stand in the very beginning. I usually consider midway about 10 or 11, but that's me, and might not actually have any true bearing. That's just how I look at it. Strength is really high here, and skill is a little bit lower. Blood Tinge is once again really low, and Arcane starts pretty low. The Professional, Born Specialist, fit for sleuthing in academia. You get a lower vitality, a decent endurance, a lower strength, a higher skill. And Blood Tinge is lower, Arcane is lower. The Military Veteran, experienced in war, a soldier with strength and skill. You get about midline here for vitality and endurance. This, however, starts with a pretty high strength and skill. So if you're looking to do a strength skill build, this might be a good place for you to start. It does have a low Blood Tinge and an even lower Arcane. Scion to a respectable line with faith in your pedigree. This one, you see you start with a pretty low vitality, a pretty low endurance, a lower strength, but you do get a pretty high skill and a pretty high Blood Tinge. This is one that you might decide to go for if you want to go a skill and gun build, a skill and Blood Tinge build. You do keep in mind that your vitality is a lot lower with this, and your endurance is actually pretty low too, which is a pretty important stat for in general. And it's definitely important for builds where you want to be really, maneuverable and active. So skill builds sometimes require an okay amount of endurance. Strength builds require a decent set of endurance because of their high endurance usage. Some of the skill weapons have a pretty low endurance usage. So maybe endurance isn't quite as important for that. As it is maybe for strength, because you don't use quite as much. But here, if you wanted to run a skill Blood Tinge build, this is probably where you would start. The Cruel Fate, face terrible hardships, but now confident in your purpose. This gets you about run-of-the-mill vitality, a little bit more endurance, and about midline strength. You get a little bit less skill, but it's still sort of midline. Now your Blood Tinge here is really low, but your Arcane stat actually starts really high. And Arcane also governs your discovery rate. And your discovery is a stat that governs how often you find items on enemies when you kill them. So, and it also governs your magic and fire and lightning and arcane. So here, if you're actually wanting an arcane start, then you would go Cruel Fate. Now, you should be forewarned that as far as weapons go, really early game, there's not really any that scale very well with arcane early on. So you really should consider very carefully about taking this one, because you're at a high, you're very limited for, the strength and skill weapons don't scale very well, obviously, for arcane, and there's really no major arcane scaling weapons till later, so you start off pretty weak here, overall. But you do find items more often, and Molotov cocktails in Bloodborne, items actually have stat scaling, unlike in other Souls games. So, for instance, in this case, your arcane stat actually governs your Molotov cocktail scaling. So if you did take a high arcane, you would have a pretty dangerous Molotov. So that's something to maybe think about. Now, like other Souls games, of course, you have the Waste of Skin. You are nothing, talentless, you shouldn't have been born. Here you start at level 4, actually, unlike level 10 on the rest of the backgrounds. You also start with only 10 Blood Echoes, and I didn't really touch on this with the others, but the Blood Echoes there, that's your currency and your experience. It's like other Souls games where the currency was souls. In this one, it's Blood Echoes. In Bloodborne, it's blood echoes. So you do start with more on the other ones. On this one, you only start with 10. The rest of your stats start pretty low. I mean, on vitality and strength there, you got about a 10. And then everything else starts below that. So here, you got pretty even stats across the board for the most part, minus blood tinge. But you're overall pretty weak. Now, since you start at level 4, leveling up will be faster, but you also can't level up until you do a few things in the very beginning of the game. So I would recommend Waste of Skin for people who want to challenge early on, or you're pretty familiar with with the Souls franchise, or you've played Bloodborne before, or you're really experienced in all this stuff, or if you just want to go into the game with as low as possible stats and the lowest level, and give yourself the most challenge and make it the hardest as you can early on, then you want to go Waste of Skin. Still, for people who aren't familiar with these or their first time Bloodborne, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but you can. It is entirely up to you. And for our character, however, I'm thinking about taking the, let's see here, probably Noble Scion, because I want to play more of a skill blood tinge character, and I'll show you why in a minute. Or, I'll show you why as we go along, and I'll explain more here in a second. One thing I didn't really touch on is these other ones. I kind of skipped over build suggestions for these. There's really no proper build path. Like, there's no obvious build path. For Milquetoast, it's more of a baseline general build. You do get more strength, so, but you start pretty evenly. Arcane, obviously, you know, that's pretty low. Lone Survivor, this is better if you just want to be really durable early game and you don't care too much about Blood Tinge and Arcane. Your Troubled Childhood, this would be a really good one for a skill, or like a pure skill build, and you still wanted to have a little bit of vitality and a little bit of strength, but didn't really care about your gun damage at all. And then Violent Pass is really good start for strength builds. And then, now Professional is another one that's got a pretty good start for skill builds. You start with a lot more endurance here, so it gives you a lot, especially, it gives you a lot of endurance, a lot of stamina to work with. Especially early on, where your skill weapon that you can start with is the Threaded Cane, which uses the least amount of stamina out of all the starting weapons. It makes the actual stamina that you get from having this high of endurance early on go really far. So I think I'm actually going to go ahead and we're going to make a Noble Scion. Now, the one thing I've noticed anyways about making a Noble Scion is that your skill and blood tinge start pretty high. But one thing you want to be careful about is because your health starts so low and because your endurance starts so low, your earlier levels, you might want to put points into vitality and endurance instead of trying to get your damage up, because your damage is going to be pretty good starting off. But your vitality and endurance is going to be really low. So you want to kind of rectify that issue pretty early, or you'll end up in situations where I have before, where I have another character who's pretty far along in the game, but I didn't put very much vitality into them. So now I'm having an issue on that character where I just don't have enough health to deal with certain situations, and it can be a rather big issue. what we're gonna do here is we're gonna make a character. I'm gonna showcase off some of this stuff. I'm gonna change gender. You can change your voice. You've got all these build options like you have in the past. You know, standard slim, very slim, burly, very burly, burly upper body, burly lower body, small head, large head. Scale adjustments. You can actually change the scale adjustments here of all the different body parts. They're pretty subtle, but they do make changes, so you can play around with this stuff as much as you want. You've got skin color, base skin color. When you go into face details, this is a feature I thought was kind of cool. So you can choose a face preset, however you want it to look. And so after you choose one, you can go into similar face, and then you can actually choose a face that's the randomizer has made that's similar to the one you're currently using. Then if you choose one, you can select it again, and then you can keep selecting it until you've created a character face just out of this one thing that's a similar face to what you had. So if you just keep using it, you keep getting different options every time that are just similar to what you had. So you can just keep using that over and over again to get similar faces to what you were using. At least that's my understanding, and it seems to have worked just about how I figured. Once again, I could be wrong, but I think I've got that right. So we're going to choose a hair, and these are all the different hairstyles we can go between. Change your eyebrows, which you've got a pretty standard selection here to choose between. And you can make these hair colors very vibrant if you so desire. I don't think I'm actually going to make a very, very vibrant hair. But I might mess about with the stuff just a little bit here. One thing we might do is we might do this. She's an old lady. Oh, you young whippersnappers. Alrighty then. We're just gonna... You know what? We'll just use this. How about it? Why not? Something I don't usually do. But, you know, that's a good part of, like, exploring stuff and everything else. It's doing stuff you've never done. Alright. We'll give her a name. Oops. I always accidentally close that. I keep forgetting it's all to capitalize. Alright, here we go. Alright, now we're going to go into this next part, and there's going to be another cinematic, so I'm going to shut up.
all signed and sealed. Now, let's begin the transfusion. Oh, don't you worry. Whatever happens, you may think it all a mere bad dream.
Ah, you found yourself a hunter.
Alright, so as you've seen, we've just had a crazy blood administration here. And we signed a contract and had what looked like a blood infusion as well. So let's see, this door doesn't open from this side. Now, that was it was pretty damn creepy. Damn dog caught on fire during that cinematic. I'm kind of glad that he did catch on fire, actually. Alright, so this note. Handwritten scroll. Seek pale blood to transcend the hunt. So, we wake up from that cinematic, and pretty much the only information we have is to seek pale blood to transcend the hunt. So, it raises a few questions here. I mean, what's pale blood? What's the hunt? So we're gonna have to... We pretty much, we don't know anything at this point, and there's already raising a lot of questions. What the hell is this place? Where the hell are we? How did we end up even on that table? And why did we sign the contract? Why did we get the blood? And this guy up here is eating this body. So we can already assume that he's not friendly. Now, there's 3 different ways I know of to deal with this. The first one is to fight him and kill him. The second one is to run past him and out those doors up there. And we'll talk about the third one here in a minute. I'm gonna try to actually fight him and see if we can't kill him. And we'll see how well that goes. The starting build I chose has really low health and really low stamina, so I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to succeed in killing him, simply because I don't know if my character has the stats that he's got in this fight. But we're gonna find out. So you kind of want to use this furniture to your advantage, because he has a hard time dealing with it. There's a lot of long, sweeping lunges, and when dealing with these werewolves, you want to try to dodge in angles. Don't dodge straight back, and do not dodge. Well, you can dodge towards him and to the left or right, but definitely don't dodge straight back. because his attacks carry him so far forwards that you're almost sure to get caught by them. And you need to dodge pretty immediately once you stop hitting him, or else his attacks, which are really fast, will catch you. And right, ooh, wow, I almost messed up right there, really bad. Now you need to be very careful to mind your stamina, because it's very, very easy to run out of stamina by over-attacking, and then not to have enough to dodge afterwards. And that creates a very big problem. Alright. So what I'm trying to do right here is if you hold down R2, you can actually cause the opponent to stagger. If you hit them with a charged R2 from behind, they'll stagger. Now, as they're staggered, if you hit R1 for a normal attack, after walking up close to them, it'll do a backstab. And that's how you backstab in Bloodborne. And that's a really, if you can get behind this guy, that's a really effective way to kill him. Alright, so we're going to go up to these doors. There we go. Come out into this courtyard. And this door is closed by a device, so we can't go that way. Now this is what items look like in this game. So, and we've already kind of found one, but I didn't mention it before. Now here's a gate we can't open. So we're going to do this and go out here. Right. Central Yarnum. Go down here for another item. And kind of look around a little bit. If you look, there's all kinds of areas that you can see. I won't name any places and I won't really talk about them, but there's a lot of places you can see from here and from everywhere in the game, in fact, in a lot of places. A lot of places you can see from different locations. You can a lot of times get there somehow or another at some point in the game. So it's really interesting to note just how interconnected the world actually is and how many places you can go. Now, by this time, a lot of times you've actually got your starting weapon. If you die, it's a little beast. But I didn't, so here we are fighting this guy with our fist. Now, we technically could probably run past this guy. But I'm going to try to kill him too. If we can. Here we go. See, that torch attack carries him forward really far. And then you can get a backstab like that. Alright, so we're going to go over here, and there's an item just around this little corner. There is another item just down there where these two bodies are, but I think we're going to wait for that, and we're going to hit this switch and then climb the ladder that comes down. This gate over here, I didn't really talk about it. This gate is closed by a device, so we can't open that. And we're going to go back up here now. So if you listen, there it is. So that sounds like fun. Not ominous at all. Alright. Now this is a lamp. This is what passes for bonfires in Bloodborne. And if you haven't played a Souls game, this is... you light it. And this is essentially... yes, see, the lamp now transports you back to the Hunter's Dream. Upon death, you awaken at this lamp. So when we die, this is where we come back to. This also allows us to return to the Hunter's Dream, which we haven't been to yet. That was the third option at the werewolf back at the place we started. If you die to the werewolf there, you get sent to the Hunter's Dream. So we're going to go back to the Hunter's Dream right now for the first time. Alright, so now you wake up at the Hunter's Dream. Normally this would happen if you died to the werewolf right after there. Instead of respawning somewhere else, you'd come here before actually going back to fight that werewolf and get past him. But now that we're here, we can take a look around real fast, and you can see the moon hanging out way back there. If you look, there's really, it looks like there's really nowhere out there, so wherever we are, it is sure as hell not where we were. Alright, so if you come just up here, there's an abandoned doll. So, I wonder who that is. If you come down here, there's a little bath messenger. This is where you can trade blood echoes to buy and sell items. This is essentially your store, and it has all these different items in it. Most of them are empty. We only have a small selection. Now, here's where you would choose your starting weapons. The messengers offer you a trick weapon. Choose one. Trick weapons are wielded with the right hand and employed in beast hunting. Alright, so we're going to take the threaded cane, since this is the skill weapon to start with. And if you look down here, it has... Let's see, yeah, here we go. If you look down here, it has a attribute bonus of C for skilling. For skill, which is the little hand at the bottom under attribute bonus, means skill. It's got a skill scaling of C, which means that it has a high skill, or about mid-road skill scaling. But that means that it scales with your skill at that amount, which increases the percentage of the damage of the weapon. Now, if you look at the Hunter's Axe, it has a scaling of D in strength, and which is the muscle arm, and scaling of E in skill. So that's not very good for skill builds. And then the Saw Cleaver has the same scaling. The Saw Cleaver is a faster weapon than the Hunter's Axe. However, it still doesn't fit what we're doing build-wise. So we're going to go with the threaded cane for starters. Alright, so now that we've got that, we walk up and talk to these guys. These messengers offer you a firearm. Choose one. Firearms are wielded with the left hand and employed in beast hunting. Alright, so we got the choice of a pistol and a blunderbuss. The pistol has more damage. They have the same scaling, but the pistol has more actual damage, and it's faster, and it has a longer range. Now, the blunderbuss has more durability. It does have less on-hit damage, and it's slower, but it has a wider spread of shots. So catching enemies on the parry, when you catching enemies with it when you time the shot right, is easier, because you have a wider spread, and if they dodge to the side, it can still have a good chance of actually hitting them. Guns are how you parry attacks in this game, and so you shoot the enemy right as they're going to attack, and it causes them to stagger, and if you walk up to them, you can perform a visceral attack, which is like a backstab. So, for the speed of the weapon, we're going to go with the Hunter's Pistol, because that makes fast parrying easier. And with the build that I'm going to be working with, it's going to be a lot of moving and fast-paced hitting, and being able to parry really quickly is going to be pretty important. Assuming that I can parry properly and I don't just mess it all up. Now these ones up here, these messengers, give you the notebook, which allows you to leave messages with these loyal servants to share them with hunters in the other worlds. So this is how you leave notes for players. Leaving notes for players and having players read them and then appraise them as fine, or fine, which means it's the positive appraisal, actually grants you healing in your game whenever somebody uprates one of your messages you leave. Too many downrated appraisals, and if you get a lot more down rates than you get positives, then your message could actually end up getting removed by the system, if I'm not mistaken. Now, this building, if you die to the werewolf in the very beginning, this building is closed. Usually it doesn't open up until you take that first lamp back and come here. So, because we didn't die the first time, we didn't see it closed, but usually this building is actually closed off until you reach that first lamp. And in here is this guy.
You must be the new hunter. Welcome to the hunter's dream. This will be your home for now. I am Gammon, friend to you hunters. You're sure to be in a fine haze about now, but don't think too hard about all of this. Just go out and kill a few beasts. It's for your own good. You know, it's just what hunters do. You'll get used to it. This was once a safe haven for hunters. A workshop where hunters used blood to enhance their weapons and flesh. We don't have as many tools as we once did, but you're welcome to use whatever you find. Even the dog, should it please you.
Alright, so Garen's just a little creepy, if you can't tell. But he does refer to us as a hunter, and that we should go and hunt and kill beasts. So that's kind of our first direction, besides finding pale blood, to transcend the hunt. So we know that we are hunters, and so far we have been told to find pale blood to transcend the hunt. And now we've met this guy, and he tells us to even use the doll should it please you, which is not creepy at all. If we come over here, we can view some notes. To escape this dreadful hunter's dream, halt the source of the spreading scourge of beasts, lest the night carry on forever. Alright, and that kind of further reinforces that we should be hunting beasts. And it talks about stopping nightmare. Now, here's the workshop. This is where we can fortify weapons using our bloodstones that we find. But we don't have any bloodstones or bloodstone shards right now, so we can't do that. You can also repair your weapons here that get damaged. There is a later function that we'll unlock at this. There's the memory altar, but we don't have a workshop tool, so we can't use it. And over here is our storage, which allows us to store and retrieve items that are stored. And so that'll be a little important, but it's just anytime that anything gets stored there, we can go and retrieve it, and vice versa if we have stuff we don't want to use and want to save. The importance of that is especially if you ever collect an item that you have the maximum of on your person, then the item that you collect goes to your storage instead of disappearing or you not being able to pick it up. So that makes it a lot easier, and it allows you to collect items even past your limit because they just get sent straight to the storage. And that's the shop. Alright, so. And these tombstones here this tombstone will allow us to actually go back to the lamp that we found. However, I just saw the time, and we've been going for a little while. I know we didn't make a lot of progress, but I've done a lot of talking and given out a lot of information this episode. I'm trying to give out as much information as possible to help out people that are new at the game, new to Souls games in general. I'm trying to explain the game as most informative as possible, because I know some people might be coming into this with no experience of what they're coming up against and what kind of game they're playing. And so I'm trying to give you all as much information as it is possible for me to give. And we're going to end this right here, and we will continue on our next video where we're actually going to be getting into Central Yharnam, and we'll start moving through that area, and I'll start showing the items and the pathways that we'll be taking, and explaining my favorite route to do on that particular zone for completing it. And we'll go through and discuss all of that next episode. So I'm going to go ahead and stop us here, and we're just going to go right over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and sit down. Alright everybody, this has been Kitsube, aka WubZerø, and I hope you all enjoyed, and stay tuned for more videos, ladies and gentlemen.